So Cindy, thank you so much for agreeing to meet with me today. I really appreciate it. I know that we had spoke briefly before about some of these questions, but if you wouldn't mind just giving me a little bit of background on yourself, your career, and your educational background with Graziadio. So kind of what are you doing now, what were you doing then, and what was part of the reason that you attended Graziadio in the first place?
Cool. Wow, that's a lot. Well, thanks, Sam. I'm happy to share what I know with our alum. So my background, I grew up traveling in a military family. My dad's a retired Air Force colonel. Travel is a wonderful education. I've heard Trevor Noah say that traveling is the antidote to ignorance. And in today's times, I could not agree more. So I look forward to when the world travel can become commonplace again. I'm a non-traditional student. I started working almost right out of high school after a quick stint in an administrative assistant school because I believed that was the best I could do at the time. So I just went right into the workforce, and in my 30s, I met someone who's still a dear friend, who's very highly educated, and she just asked me one day, you know, Cindy, where did you go to school? And I was like, oh, Mary, I didn't go to school. I'm not that smart. And she was incensed. She's like, no. You need to get an education. You need to get an undergrad, and I don't see you stopping there. And I didn't believe her. So for the next 6 months, she stayed after me, and I finally went to junior college just to get her to leave me alone. But I mean, for me, higher ed was this far away, scary thing. Even the word matriculation didn't make sense to me. I had no idea what that meant, so I just didn't want to do it. But I went in, found out I loved it, and then I got my undergrad degree, and then I dared dream to go to a very elevated school, which in my mind was Pepperdine, to get my MBA. And my experience there has been fantastic, you know, from the professors, the students, and the long-term relationships that transcend the program. And then since that time, my relationship with Pepperdine has been serving as chair on the Graziadio Alumni Network Leadership Council for 3 years, where we worked in areas of service, relationships, and professional growth. That was fun, and I'm proud to have helped create something for the greater good that lives beyond me. I've also done pro bono work for the school for new grads, and that's always been fun. And then my career's taken a circuitous route, as most grads have. I mean, very often you think you have an idea of what you want to do, but someone taps you on the shoulder and invites you to go into something else. So while I was in school, I was able to see from my MBA studies where I could step in and help my company. I saw weaknesses where I could step in and add value and add insight on how to build out something. So that involved into a new department, a new title for myself, and I was able to negotiate a salary for myself. Where I am right now is I'm a Charles Schwab. I'm a consultant or an agent to my 12 business partners who are salespeople. And their goal is to get wealth advisors to custody their assets with us. And I get to create marketing strategies and communications that drive meaningful partnerships that ultimately drive our business development officers' performance.
Very cool. Thank you so much for sharing that. It sounds like you definitely have a great amount of experience, so that is much appreciated. And I love that we both work in the same field, so that's always fun. Just diving a little bit deeper into your experience. So what was your experience pursuing your graduate education in that time, in the first round when you were in that time frame, kind of in the midst of a recession? Did you have any sort of kind of negative, not negative experience, but kind of any sort of reservations as you were studying? You're like, oh no, like we're in the middle of a recession, or did you have a kind of a more positive outlook at the time?
Well, for me, it was honestly, it was uneventful in terms of how the recession impacted me. I worked at a firm that subsidized my education, and it was a financial firm, very pragmatic environment, very financial businessy environment. So it was, I wouldn't say it was smooth sailing, because anytime you try to pursue your career while you're working full time and getting an education is very tough. But I can't say the recession had a negative impact. I could see it all around me. You don't want to be blind to it, but it made me very, it helped me, it helps toward your resilience. Anyone who does go through the FEMBA program, the fully employed program, is going to be focused on the resilience. So the experience was, I think, as all of our alum would say, is very positive, very tough, but I don't think the recession was a factor. But honestly, I think when you do, I mean, when I'm thinking about what's happening today, it's an opportunity to look at all the small silver linings and leverage those towards the greater good or towards things that haven't been done or thought of before, if that makes sense.
Right.
I can't say, though, that pursuing the degree in the midst of a recession was a hindrance. I mean, it wasn't those types of things. You should be aware of world events, and you should be mindful and following the news so you can make smart decisions, and you should be informed and do what you should for your due diligence. But I can't say that got in the way of my perception of should I stop pursuing this degree, or these scary times. If anything, it motivated me to make sure that I want this safety net. I want these tools in my tool belt, because an education is something that no one can take from you.
Right, right. Thank you. And that's a great point. That's kind of what we're hoping to express with that as well, is that, having that educational background is a good safety net for a lot of people. So thank you. That's a great answer. And then you kind of already answered this question. So, it sounds like since the recession didn't really affect you as much when you were pursuing your education, did you have a game plan for what you had wanted to do post-graduation? Did you kind of have an idea in mind of what you were looking to do once you completed your MBA? Did you want to stay in the same field? Did you want to pursue something else? Was there anything that you kind of had in mind during that time?
During the time, I mean, as a fully employed student, my mindset was to expand my current role, which my coursework helped me to do. My MBA taught me to understand every discipline of my firm: accounting, finance, business management, technology, marketing, org behavior, economics. And again, to learn where my firm was strong and where there were opportunities for improvement. So to that end, as I was graduating, I helped envision and create a new department with the help of my IT professor, made a new title for myself with my business professor, and negotiated a better salary with my negotiations professor. So the game plan was evolve and grow further in the firm that I already was. But it's so funny, but shortly after I graduated, and I think a lot of the students will find, especially in the Graziadio school, you're going to be tapped on the shoulder for other opportunities. I mean, if you go through the program and try to maximize it, because it's a wonderful education, and part of the opportunity is the relationships that you make that will hopefully transcend the program. So what you want to do is network, build your network, nurture your network, and you never know when someone's going to tap you on the shoulder for your next opportunity. I have to think my last 3 or 4 roles, it was because someone tapped me on the shoulder and said, hey, I think you would be perfect for this. Would you like to have a conversation? But in terms of my game plan, it was just, I just wanted to get through it because it was such a challenge, which I'm so thankful I was able to do and do well. But also just make sure that I kept those tools and leverage them towards the role I was currently in.
Right, right. Thank you. Great answer. Yeah, and it's good. That's another, like you said, an option just to expand your current role. I think that's something that people can really use their education to just do something that kind of maximizes what they're doing even further. So thank you. That's a great answer. And then again, you had kind of mentioned this briefly, but were there any major takeaways that you had, from graduating during the Great Recession? Was there anything that you look back on now that you kind of think are takeaways that you learned kind of going throughout that process?
Big life lessons graduating during the Great Recession. Regardless of what's going on in the current events of the day, I think it helps to steel yourself in a thoughtful long-term approach and don't get emotional in the day-to-day events. Don't let world events cloud your vision. Be informed, be aware, and keep moving forward based on the best information you can get. And don't take the bait of letting the media trigger you. I think news outlets have to create new content on an insane 24-hour cycle. They're going to come up with crazy stuff just to keep your attention. So in challenging times, do your best to steep yourself in logic and credible information. Always consider your source and what's motivating them to share with you what they're sharing with you. If it's constantly sensationalistic, I'd say that's generally a sign to move on to a source that's more credible. I think that regardless of how crazy things are, staying focused and thinking long term and understanding that no matter how bad things are in any given environment, things will change. Change is our only constant. So if things are crappy right now, just wait. They're going to get better. And if things are awesome right now, savor it, because that's likely to change too. So no matter how dark it gets, it's always going to change. It's always going to change. There's nothing like a good night's rest to kind of reset yourself and start fresh.
Right. Thank you. All great advice, definitely. I think, especially with the media, like you said, it's that's kind of been some of my advice is unplugging from social media. I think is important for a lot of people because that's how a lot of us stay informed nowadays. So I think to kind of have that a little bit of unplug, I think is great. And then
the unplug is good too. The unplug is good too, but you just reminded me of something. If you are in social media and if you want to strengthen your network and be known for something, be known as a voice of reason, be known as something that's a bright light in all this darkness, be known as something or someone who's sharing positive information and working towards a greater good, as we do at Graziadio. You know, it's freely receive, freely give. We're about servant leadership. Let us be the ones who are sharing information that is helpful, that is valuable, is meaningful. I'm not talking about, you know, sugarcoating everything, but being a positive voice right now at this time is especially helpful, I think.
Right, I agree completely. Thank you so much for that answer. And then moving on to the next question, if you had the chance to do anything differently during that time, would you have? I know most people that I've spoke to have all had the same answer where they truly believe that, you know, the kind of thing that they went through put them on the path to where they're at now. But I am curious to always know if someone would do something differently or if they would stay exactly the same as how everything played out.
Going through the program, if I had to do it over again, I would have enjoyed the journey more. I was in such a hurry to graduate. And sometimes you're so steeped in the work, you forget the point of what you're doing. And a huge part of it is the relationships. And when you think of the span of your lifetime, the course of this program is minuscule. So savor it, enjoy it. It's a very unique time. It's a very special time. And our lives are about the memories we create and the lives we touch more than anything else. So I would have worked toward enjoying more of it because it was fun, even though it was incredibly hard work. But and leveraging, I still have, I would say, I could easily reach out to a third of my professors. A lot of my classmates I'm still good friends with, and those relationships are super important. And even if this is an aside, not about doing things differently, but of all the people that you think of, if someone pops in your mind as someone that you remember that you had, you know, you worked on a project together and it was great, or you just admired your leadership style, 99% of the time, if you reach out to someone that you haven't contacted in a couple of years, reach out to them. They'll be happy to hear from you. Most of the time they are. But in terms of doing anything differently, I think I would have enjoyed the journey, the vacation, the education more. Right.
And I think that's great advice. I think sometimes you're in school and you blink and then you're like, wow, I can't believe I'm already out. And then you have your whole career ahead of you. So I think appreciating the journey is great. And then lastly, you've already given some really good advice, but do you have any other advice for our upcoming 2020 graduates entering the market during turbulent times? You know, some people do already have jobs, but maybe they're uncertain, or some people did get things, offers and things like that rescinded. So do you have any advice just kind of to students that are graduating, whether it's their first job or they're expanding a role like yourself, just for things to do in times like this that are a little bit uncertain?
Yeah, times really are uncertain. I mean, you and I are lucky because we're in marketing, we're super busy. And I have to be mindful of the fact that a lot of people lost their work, or the industries that they're in have turned on their heads. I think it's helpful to be nimble. Um, there's an expression, dinosaurs die. Adapt. Let that be your differentiator, and you will be remembered for that. So a lot of us, I hear people often talking about longing for the way things used to be. And there's nothing wrong with being nostalgic. But I think especially at times like this, it's important to deal with what is, not what you wish things to be. The more you're steeped in the reality of what's going on, the better you will be able to adapt. People talk a lot about this being the new normal, and I prefer the term the new reality. And I think the new reality creates an environment or a perfect storm for a lot of innovators. Not to, if you'll excuse the cliche, it's like necessity is the mother of invention. Look for the silver linings that are popping up all over the place, lean into them and leverage them. And an example that just popped into my head is the Waffle House example. Waffle House is a chain of restaurants that makes waffles, and they had to close. And they're very popular where they are. And a lot of restaurants, as you know, work on a razor thin margin, and they're really at risk. So in addition to delivery services or takeout services, what the Waffle House did was they sold their recipe. They had a secret recipe for their wonderful waffles. And in the first 4 hours, they sold out the first time they did it. So thinking like that, just leaning into what the reality is and leveraging that is super helpful. We had an event with the Pepperdine students back that we scheduled in March, right before shelter in place happened, and we couldn't have it. And that was going to be 1 or 2 students who were going to show up and spend a couple of hours with us at our office. Well, we decided to switch that to virtual, as a lot of people are. And now that event turned into, instead of 2 to 3 students, or maybe 5 at the most, it became undergrad and grad students of 30 students. And instead of just 4 people in my office, we expanded that to 9 people of my fellow colleagues across the firm. And it turned out to be a wonderful event. And that happened during the week when there's a lot of tension going on in the news. So we turned something that was very small of 2 or 3 people to something that was like 30 plus people. And it was nice to do a bit of greater good at a time when there were a lot of challenges going on. So all that to say is, I think if you're entering this market at this time, be nimble, be opportunistic. And I mean that in a positive way. Obviously, don't take advantage of people, but think about what's needed and step into those needs and offer those needs, add value in those areas. And I think that'll help you go a long way.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much. That was great advice, and we really appreciate hearing from you, Cindy. Thank you so much for joining me today. I hope that you have a great rest of your day.
Oh, you're very welcome. You're very welcome.